Hello and welcome to Mailtrap videos, where we explore the world of emails. In this video, we'll explore email validation within contact forms in React, guiding you through each key step. In this tutorial, we'll delve into various methods of email validation in React, from crafting custom validation to leveraging powerful libraries like Formik and React Hook Form. We'll equip you with the tools to handle email inputs effectively. Feel free to jump to the relevant methods in the timestamps provided below. Let's begin with setting up a simple React application. The first step is to create a new project using this command. Name the project. Once the project is initialized, navigate to the created folder and execute the npm install command to install dependencies. After launching the application with a npm run dev command, verify its functionality by opening a web browser and navigating to localhost 5173. A successful applications interface load confirms it is working. Now, open the project directory in your chosen code editor to implement the email validation logic. The focus here is on building custom validation logic without relying on external libraries. Start by clearing the entry point in the src app.js file, leaving a foundation for the upcoming code. Now import React and use state from the React library. For the form to be centered, we'll leave the basic default CSS file for styling. Next, we can define the email validation logic. This involves creating a constant with an isEmail function, and in it, using a regex pattern, we define the criteria for a valid email address. The built-in JavaScript test method is then employed to check if a given email input matches this regex pattern. The following step involves establishing state management using useState. Here, you set up two state variables, values to store the email inputs, initially set to an empty string, and errors as an empty object to track any validation errors. Then, develop a function named validate and submit form. This function manages form submission to prevent default behaviors like page refreshing. Additionally, it plays a crucial role in validating the email format. Upon detecting discrepancies, it updates the error state with appropriate error messages. Next, implement a function called isEmail to update the values state with the email input whenever there is a change in the input field. This function captures the input field's event target value and updates the state accordingly, ensuring the email value in the state is always current. Remember that you can set numerous validation conditions. Here, we just showed some examples. Next, we focus on the form's success and error handling. A successful submission means no errors in the errors object, and we check this using this expression. We display an alert with the submitted email in a readable JSON format if an error is returned. We then create a setEmail function to update the email state whenever there's a change in the input field. This function takes the input event, copies the current values, and updates the email with event target value expression. In the UI section, our form is set up to remove the default action and use our validate and submit form function on submission. We can now add a title and a label for the email input tagged with user email. The email input is a text field set to display the current email value and update on changes. For error display, object entries is used to iterate through the errors object, rendering each error in a span with bold, red text for visibility. Finally, we can test the application by running npm run dev and visiting localhost 5173. Here, we test different email formats to ensure the validation logic works as intended, with valid emails passing through and incorrect formats triggering appropriate error messages. And everything works as we set it. Next, let's explore email validation with Formik. It's a popular React library that simplifies building and handling form data in React applications. As usual, first, we set up our base application and install relevant dependencies. As in the previous example, let's quickly ensure that our app works by executing the npm run dev command and visiting our local host. Everything checks out, so we can now install the Formik library. Let's check our package.json file to ensure that Formik has been added to our dependencies. Next, we open our application's main file and clean it up by removing any unnecessary imports, keeping only the essential function structure and the default CSS to keep our form centered. Now, let's dive into the core of validation. First, we import Formik. Then, we define our validation logic. We create a validation function that will hold our email validation checks. The function initializes an empty error object. For our email checks, the first condition ensures the email field isn't empty. The second check involves a regex pattern to validate the email format. We validate email values against this pattern using JavaScript's inbuilt test function. If the validation fails, we assign an invalid email address string value and return the error object from our function. Next, we need to integrate Formik into our app function. We start by initializing Formik with its essential configurations. The first step is specifying initial values from our form fields. In this demonstration, we set them as empty strings to represent the starting state of our form inputs. Next, we connect our validate function to Formik. This connection is vital to applying custom validation logic to the form inputs. Additionally, we incorporate an onSubmit function within Formik setup. This function will be triggered upon form submission and handles the form data post-validation. Alright, now Formik is integrated into our app function. Moving on to the form interface, we construct our form within the return statement. We assign Formik handle submit to the form's onSubmit event, ensuring that Formik manages the submission process. In the form, we add an email input field and assign both the name and ID attributes as email. This field is connected to two Formik functions: Formik handle change, which updates the form state whenever the user types in the field, and Formik handle blur, which is used to track when the field loses focus. These connections ensure the input field's value is always in sync with Formik's state, and that the form responds appropriately to user interactions. Now let's add error handling and provide validation feedback. Below the email input field, add the span element where our error message will appear. Use Formik's built-in properties, Formik touched email and Formik errors email to make this work effectively. With touched email, we check if the user has interacted with the email field, and errors email is used to identify any validation errors for the email input. Lastly, if there are no errors, let's return null. Now that this is done, we just need a submit button. Finally, we can test this out. Let's run npm run dev, visit localhost 5173, and try different email inputs. If we submit a valid email, the form processes it smoothly. But removing .com and trying again, Formik immediately flags it and displays an error message. Now let's explore React Hook Form, another excellent validation tool in React. The first step is, as usual, setting up our basic React application, ensuring everything is operational on our local host, and installing the base dependencies. Next, we install the React Hook Form library to the created project. Now, let's confirm that it has been added to our package.json file and remove any unnecessary imports from app.js file, maintaining just the core function structure. To handle form logic, import the useForm hook, which helps manage form state and validation effectively. Next, inside our app function, we use object destructuring to extract necessary methods from useForm. These include register for registering input fields, handle submit for managing form submission, and form state for tracking validation errors. And we also defined the onSubmit function triggered upon form submission, displays an alert showing the form's value in JSON format, with null for unfilled fields. Now it's time to construct our form interface. We'll create a form tag with an event that calls our onSubmit function on submission. Next, let's add a label for input and call it email. The input type we can set as text and add an email ID as placeholder. Now that our input form is in place, it's time to register the email field to implement form validations. This is done using the register method. So we need to register our email field with 2 key validation parameters to ensure accurate data entry. The first validation rule we set is required, which we mark as true. Next, we introduce a pattern rule, which utilizes a regex pattern. With these rules in place, our email field can now ensure users provide valid and necessary information. And if they don't, an error message will pop up. Lastly, we add our submit button. Alright, now let's open our terminal and test this out. Let's try out the input field. And it's working as we set it. Now let's turn our attention to the Validator module in React, another effective tool for email validation. Much like our previous examples, we begin with the familiar steps of setting up a basic React application, installing the necessary dependencies, and this time installing the Validator module with the npm install validator command. In the main application file, we streamline our setup by clearing out any non-essential imports and importing the functions we need from the module. In our function app, we start by setting up our state management using useState. We assign 2 variables, message to hold our email validation messages, and setMessage as its updater function. Initially, message is set to an empty string. Next, we focus on our email validation logic. We create a function named validateEmail. This function takes an event, extracts the email value from it, and then uses the Validator module to check its validity. If the email is valid, our setMessage function updates the message to thank you. If not, it sets the message to please enter a valid email. With our email validation logic set, we next construct the UI. Starting with a div to house our form, we include a title validating email in reactjs and label our email input field as user email. The email input field, set as a text type and tagged with the ID user email, is crucial for our form structure. It's linked to our validation logic through an onChange event, calling the validateEmail function with each change. To display validation feedback, a span is placed below the input field. Styled in bold, red font for visibility, it dynamically shows validation messages, updating with our message state. Alright, let's launch the development server with npm rundev and navigate to localhost 5173. Let's input various email formats into our form. And we can already see that the validation messages work. This concludes our comprehensive guide on React email validation techniques. We hope you found this tutorial helpful. Thank you for watching this video, brought to you by Mailtrap, an email delivery platform to test, send, and control your email infrastructure in one place. Like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications to see more tutorials just like this one. And we'll see you in the next one.